Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you today about something sacred, something holy, something the world may never understand. If you belong to God, if He has set you apart, there are things that must remain hidden in your heart, not out of fear, not out of secrecy, but out of obedience, wisdom, and trust in the Lord. The Bible says in Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. There are things too precious to cast before the world, things that should not be revealed to just anyone. The enemy is watching, the world is listening, and so today I want to share with you 5 things that God's chosen ones must never reveal. There are things in life that are too sacred, too precious to be shared with just anyone. The Bible warns us to guard our hearts, for out of them flow the issues of life. When God has set you apart, when He has called you as His own, there are things that must remain hidden in your spirit, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Not everything is meant for public display. The world is full of people who do not understand the things of God, who do not cherish what is holy. When you reveal the depths of your heart too freely, you risk allowing those who do not have your best interest at heart to trample upon what is sacred. The enemy is always watching. He listens for the words you speak, the dreams you share, the weaknesses you confess. When you reveal too much, you give him access to places in your life where he does not belong. There are people who, whether intentionally or unknowingly, become instruments of discouragement. They hear what God has placed in your heart and immediately begin to sow seeds of doubt, questioning whether you really heard from the Lord. They may laugh at your convictions, mock your faith, or try to convince you that what you hold dear is foolish. When you expose too much of what God has given you, you make yourself vulnerable to voices that can shake your confidence and weaken your resolve. God speaks to His people in ways that are deeply personal. There are moments of revelation, moments of divine instruction, moments when the Lord whispers truths that are meant to guide and strengthen you. These are treasures of faith, not to be cast before those who do not understand. Some things are meant to be carried in quiet obedience, meditated upon in the secret place of prayer. Not every vision needs to be announced. Not every burden needs to be explained. There are seasons when God calls His people to silence, to simply walk in faith without making declarations before the world. In a time when everyone is encouraged to share their every thought, feeling, and experience, it is easy to fall into the trap of overexposure. Social media, conversations with friends, casual discussions, these can all become places where we let down our guard and speak things that should have remained between us and God. But wisdom teaches us restraint. Just as a king does not reveal the strategies of war to his enemies, a believer should not expose the depths of their soul to those who may not honor it. There is power in silence. There is strength in discretion. When God has placed something within you, when He has spoken into your life, it is not always for public display. Some things must be protected, nurtured, and allowed to grow in the presence of God before they are ever revealed to the world. Life is filled with struggles, and no one is exempt from hardship. There are battles that rage within the soul, weaknesses that weigh heavily on the heart, and burdens that sometimes feel too great to bear. But not everyone needs to know about them. Not everyone can be trusted with the deepest struggles of your life. There are those who, rather than offering support, will use your weaknesses against you. Some will pretend to listen, but will later spread your troubles for their own gain. Others may look down on you, judge you, or lose respect for you simply because they see your humanity. This is why it is crucial to be discerning about whom you confide in. God is the one who truly understands your pain. He sees the silent tears, the unspoken fears, and the battles fought in the secret places of your heart. There are moments in life when even the closest of friends cannot comprehend the weight of what you carry. People may sympathize, but only God fully knows the depths of your struggles. He alone has the power to bring true healing, strength, and restoration. The world may offer temporary solutions, but the presence of God is the only place where true comfort is found. There is also wisdom in keeping your weaknesses between you and the Lord. The enemy is always seeking ways to attack, and when you expose your struggles to the wrong people, you give him an open door to create further chaos in your life. Some people may discourage you rather than uplift you. Instead of speaking life, they may fill your mind with doubt and fear. Instead of reminding you of God's promises, they may cause you to question your own faith. Not everyone has the right words to speak into your situation. Some may unintentionally make things worse by offering misguided advice, leading you further away from the path God has for you. God calls His people to trust in Him, to cast their burdens upon Him, to seek refuge in His presence. He is the one who strengthens the weary, who lifts up the brokenhearted, who renews the spirit of those who feel weak. While it is good to have godly counsel and strong spiritual support, the first place to turn in times of struggle should always be the Lord. There is power in bringing your weaknesses before Him in prayer, surrendering them completely into His hands. When you cry out to Him in secret, He answers in ways no human ever could. Many in the world are quick to speak about their struggles, seeking validation, attention, or sympathy from others. But as a child of God, your strength is found in silence and in the presence of the Almighty. When you keep your deepest struggles between you and God, you are placing your trust in the one who has the power to turn your weakness into strength, your sorrow into joy, and your trials into testimonies of His glory. There are moments in life when God speaks to His people in ways that are deeply personal, in ways that no one else would understand. These moments are sacred, meant to strengthen, guide, and prepare you for what is to come. When God places something on your heart, when He reveals something to you in the stillness of prayer, it is not always meant to be shared. Some things are meant to be kept between you and Him alone. The world does not understand the ways of God. Many people, even those who claim to have faith, will question or dismiss what the Lord has spoken to you. They may try to reason with human logic, analyze what cannot be analyzed, and convince you that what you heard was not truly from God. If you share too much of what God has placed in your heart, you may find yourself facing doubt, discouragement, and even opposition from those who do not see what you see. The Bible is filled with examples of God speaking to His chosen ones in secret. He spoke to Moses through the burning bush, to Elijah in a still small voice, to Samuel in the quiet of the night. These were personal encounters, divine conversations meant to prepare them for the path ahead. Had they rushed to reveal what God had spoken before the right time, they might have been met with ridicule, disbelief, or interference from others who could not understand the magnitude of God's plans. There is wisdom in keeping certain revelations to yourself. When you share too soon, you risk exposing God's work in your life to those who are not meant to hear it. Some people may dismiss it, while others may try to manipulate or take control of what God has given you. Some may even become envious or resentful, seeking to undermine what the Lord is doing in your life. The enemy is always looking for an opportunity to disrupt God's plans, and revealing too much can sometimes give him an opening to sow confusion or fear. God desires intimacy with His people. He calls them to draw near, to seek Him in prayer, to listen for His voice. When He speaks, it is an act of divine love, a moment of communion between Creator and creation. These personal conversations are treasures not meant to be carelessly shared with the world. Just as a close friend does not reveal every private conversation to strangers, so too should the people of God guard their moments with Him. There are seasons when God may lead you to share certain things, but it must be in His time and in His way. Until then, it is better to cherish these moments, to reflect on them, to allow them to grow within you. When God speaks, He does so for a purpose, and that purpose is often fulfilled in the quiet obedience of a heart that listens and trusts without the need for immediate validation from others. When God places a calling on your life, when He reveals His plans for your future, it is not always meant to be shared with others immediately. Some things must remain hidden until the appointed time. There is great wisdom in guarding the dreams, visions, and assignments that God has placed within you, allowing them to develop under His guidance rather than exposing them prematurely to the opinions and doubts of others. Not everyone will understand what God has called you to do. Some will question it, some will criticize it, and some may even try to hinder it. People often see through the lens of their own experiences, limitations, and fears. What may seem clear to you through the eyes of faith may appear impossible or even foolish to others. When Joseph shared his dreams with his brothers, instead of celebrating what God had revealed, they became envious and sought to destroy him. Had he kept those dreams to himself, he might have avoided unnecessary hardship. God's plans still prevailed, but his journey became more difficult because he revealed too much too soon. The enemy also listens carefully to what is spoken. While he cannot read minds or know the depths of a believer's heart, he can hear what is declared openly. When you share your future plans, you may unknowingly give the enemy an opportunity to create obstacles, stir up opposition, or plant seeds of doubt in those around you. There are times when silence is a weapon, when guarding what God has spoken allows His work to unfold without unnecessary interference. God's timing is perfect. What He has placed within you must grow and mature before it is revealed. A seed does not sprout overnight. It must be planted deep in the soil, hidden from view, nourished and strengthened before it breaks through the surface. In the same way, the calling and plans that God has placed in your life must be cultivated in faith, prayer, and preparation before they are shared with the world. Rushing ahead of God's timing can lead to confusion, unnecessary struggles, and even discouragement when things do not unfold as quickly as expected. When God called Moses to lead His people, He prepared him in the wilderness before sending him back to Egypt. When He called David to be king, He first allowed him to grow in wisdom and strength before placing him on the throne. Even Jesus Himself did not begin His ministry until the appointed time. There is a process, a season of waiting where God shapes, refines, and strengthens His chosen ones before fully revealing His plans. There is peace in trusting that what God has spoken will come to pass in His way and in His time. Walking in obedience often means moving in quiet confidence, allowing God to open doors rather than trying to force them open. The dreams He has given, the purpose He has placed in your heart will be fulfilled according to His divine plan. Until then, wisdom calls for patience, prayer, and trust in the One who has already written your future. There is great danger in exposing the sins and failures of others. In a world where people are quick to judge, quick to gossip, and quick to spread the shortcomings of others, the people of God are called to a different standard. Love covers a multitude of sins, and those who walk in wisdom understand that not everything needs to be spoken, not every flaw needs to be exposed, and not every mistake needs to be broadcast for the world to see. God has shown His people mercy. Every person has sinned, has fallen short, has made mistakes that only the grace of God could redeem. If God were to expose every thought, every failure, every moment of weakness, none would be able to stand. Yet He chooses to cover, to restore, and to bring healing rather than shame. He calls His people to do the same. There is power in grace, and those who truly understand the mercy they have received will extend that same mercy to others. The enemy delights in division. He seeks to create conflict, to turn brother against brother, to plant seeds of bitterness and resentment. When people expose the sins of others, they often do so not out of love, but out of pride, self-righteousness, or a desire to elevate themselves by bringing someone else down. This is not the way of the Lord. When Noah became drunk and lay uncovered in his tent, one of his sons exposed his shame, but the other two covered him, refusing to look upon his nakedness. God blessed those who covered their father, while the one who exposed him was cursed. This is a powerful lesson in how God views those who spread the shame of others. There is a time for correction, but correction is meant to restore, not to humiliate. Jesus Himself demonstrated this when He encountered the woman caught in adultery. The religious leaders were ready to expose her, to stone her, to make a public example of her sin. But Jesus, full of wisdom and grace, responded with love. He did not deny her wrongdoing, but He also did not broadcast it for the world to see. Instead, He told her to go and sin no more. This is the heart of God, to restore, to redeem, to lift up rather than to tear down. The world thrives on gossip, on scandal, on exposing every failure and mistake, but the people of God are not to be like the world. They are called to be a light, to walk in love, to build up rather than destroy. There is wisdom in silence, in knowing when to speak and when to remain quiet. Words have power, and those who are careless with their words can cause great harm. What is spoken in secret, what is known about another's failures, should not be used as a weapon, but as an opportunity to intercede, to pray, and to seek restoration rather than ruin. Wisdom and discretion are marks of those who walk closely with God. The world is filled with those who seek approval, who long to be recognized, and who desire validation from others, but the people of God are called to a higher standard. They do not seek the applause of men, nor do they measure their worth by the opinions of the world. Instead, they live with the understanding that true approval comes only from God. Walking in wisdom means knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, when to share and when to keep certain matters hidden within the heart. There are many who feel the need to constantly explain themselves, to prove their worth, to justify their actions before others. But this is not the way of those who trust in the Lord. Jesus himself did not seek to justify himself before men. When he was accused, he remained silent. When others misunderstood him, he did not chase after their approval. He was secure in his identity, in his purpose, and in the calling placed upon him by the Father. Those who follow him are called to walk in the same confidence, knowing that the only approval that matters is the approval of God. Seeking the approval of men often leads to compromise. When people are driven by a desire to be liked, to be accepted, or to be praised, they begin to make decisions based on what others think rather than on what God commands. This is a dangerous path. It causes people to change their convictions, to soften their stance on truth, and to become more concerned with pleasing people than with obeying God. The Bible warns that the fear of man brings a snare, but those who trust in the Lord will be kept safe. The need for human validation can trap a person in a cycle of constant striving, never feeling truly satisfied, never feeling truly at peace. But those who rest in the assurance of God's approval find true freedom. The world will never fully understand those who walk closely with God. There will always be criticism, always be those who question motives, always be those who doubt or mock. But the opinions of the world do not define the path of a believer. The only voice that matters is the voice of God. Those who belong to him must learn to walk in quiet strength, not feeling the need to explain, not feeling the need to be understood by all, but simply walking in obedience, knowing that God sees all, knows all, and will reward those who are faithful. True wisdom is found in knowing that the opinions of men are fleeting, but the approval of God is eternal. Those who walk in discretion understand that not everything needs to be shared, not every thought needs to be spoken, and not every action needs to be justified before others. There is peace in knowing that God is the one who sees the heart, who knows the truth, and who will ultimately be the judge of all things. Wisdom teaches that not every plan, every goal, or every dream should be shared with others. The path that God has set before his people is not always meant to be discussed openly. There are seasons of preparation, seasons of growth, and seasons where God is working in silence. When people speak too soon about the things God is doing in their lives, they risk exposing their journey to those who may not support, understand, or believe in it. Some things must be kept in the secret place, nurtured through prayer, and allowed to unfold according to God's timing. The enemy is always looking for an opportunity to disrupt God's plans. He listens to words spoken carelessly. He watches for moments of vulnerability, and he seeks to use the very people around you to plant seeds of doubt and discouragement. When you reveal too much about what God has spoken into your heart, you give the enemy an opportunity to attack before you have been fully prepared. This is why Scripture urges believers to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. A soldier does not reveal his battle plans to the enemy, nor does a builder announce every step of his work before the foundation is secure. There is wisdom in moving in silence, allowing God's plans to be fulfilled without unnecessary interference. People often speak from their own limitations, fears, and experiences. When you share your vision, you may encounter those who discourage you simply because they cannot see what God has revealed to you. They may tell you that your dream is too big, your calling too difficult, your goals impossible. They may project their own doubts onto you, making you question what you once knew with certainty. Even well-meaning friends and family members can unintentionally plant seeds of fear that hinder faith. But those who trust in the Lord must walk by faith, and not by sight, and not by the opinions of others. There is also great strength in allowing God to be the one who reveals his work in his own time. When something is truly from him, it does not need to be announced or explained. The fruit of his work will be evident, and his plans will come to pass without the need for human validation. Joseph learned this lesson the hard way when he shared his dreams with his brothers. Instead of receiving encouragement, he was met with jealousy and opposition. His journey became more difficult because he spoke too soon. Yet, despite the challenges, God's plan for his life was fulfilled. His story serves as a reminder that what God has ordained will come to pass, but wisdom calls for patience and discretion along the way. Silence does not mean inaction. It means walking in faith, trusting that God is at work even when others cannot see it. When the time is right, what has been nurtured in the secret place will be revealed in its fullness, and no opposition will be able to stop it. Not every blessing, every victory, or every favor from God should be openly shared with others. There are moments when God pours out his goodness, when he answers prayers, when he opens doors that no man can shut. In these moments, the heart may feel the urge to testify, to proclaim his goodness for all to hear. But wisdom reminds us that not everyone will celebrate with you. Some will envy, some will resent, and some will seek to take what is not theirs. There is a time to share, but there is also a time to keep certain blessings hidden, to treasure them in the heart, and to give thanks to God in the secret place. The Bible is clear that jealousy is a powerful force. Cain envied Abel's favor with God, and it led him to commit the first murder. Joseph's brothers envied the favor he had with their father, and they sold him into slavery. Saul envied David's victories, and it led him into a rage that consumed his life. Not everyone can handle seeing God's blessings on your life. Some will smile outwardly, but harbor resentment inwardly. Some will appear to support you, but will secretly wish for your downfall. This is why wisdom calls for discretion. Sharing too much too soon or with the wrong people can invite unnecessary trouble, stirring up opposition that could have been avoided. The enemy is always watching. He cannot steal what God has given, but he can create obstacles, stir up conflict, and send distractions. When people boast too openly about their blessings, they sometimes invite spiritual attacks they are not prepared for. The enemy will use jealousy, pride, and competition to create division. He will plant thoughts in the hearts of those who listen, whispering lies that turn admiration into envy. The blessings God gives are meant to bring joy and fulfillment, not contention and strife. There is also a lesson in humility. True gratitude does not always need an audience. It is possible to rejoice in God's goodness without seeking validation from others. Jesus often performed miracles and then told people to tell no one. He healed the sick, opened blind eyes, and even raised the dead, yet he did not seek recognition. He understood that some things are meant to remain between the soul and God. The greatest testimonies are often not shouted from rooftops, but lived out in quiet faithfulness. A blessing that is spoken of too soon can also be challenged before it is fully secured. Just as a fruit is not picked before it is ripe, certain victories should not be announced before they have reached their fullness. There is wisdom in waiting, in allowing God to complete his work before making it known. When the time is right, the evidence of his blessings will be undeniable, and no opposition will be able to stand against what he has established. Until then, it is best to cherish his gifts in quiet gratitude, trusting that his favor needs no human validation to be real.